Sometimes the most beautiful lives are stolen by the most poisonous emotion. Kendra Hatcher was a woman who lived to give, a dentist who left the safety of small-town Illinois to serve disadvantaged children in Dallas, a volunteer who traveled to Ecuador to heal, a believer who spent her free time spreading faith and hope to anyone who would listen. She was the kind of person who made the world brighter just by existing in it. But in September 2014, her extraordinary life was cut short by something as ancient and corrosive as jealousy itself. What followed was a murder orchestrated by obsession, executed by desperation, and driven by a woman who could not accept that the man she loved had chosen someone else. This is the story of how one person's refusal to move forward became another person's death sentence. From the moment Kendra arrived in Dallas, she was determined to make a difference. After years of dental school and the dream of opening her own lucrative practice, she chose instead to join Smile Zone, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free dental care to children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Her colleagues described her as beautiful, compassionate, and genuinely invested in the lives of her patients. Beyond her work, Kendra was deeply spiritual. She participated in mission programs building churches in foreign countries. She dedicated herself to community service with the kind of authentic commitment that cannot be faked. By May 2015, her life seemed nearly perfect. That was when she met Ricky Paniagua on Tinder. Ricky was a resident dermatologist at the University of Texas, ambitious and driven by the same values that guided Kendra. Within months, they were making plans for marriage. Within 4 months, they believed they had found their perfect match. Kendra lived in an upscale apartment complex in Dallas called Gables Park 17, located near Cedar Springs and Ackerd. The building was secured with 24-hour surveillance cameras, a concierge service, and a carefully monitored parking garage. She felt safe there. She had worked hard to build this life, and nothing seemed capable of threatening it. But Ricky had a past. Years earlier, he had been in a long-term relationship with a woman named Brenda Delgado. They had broken up in February 2015 because Ricky no longer felt the connection he once did. Yet they remained friends. In June of that year, Ricky made what he believed was a thoughtful decision. He sent Brenda an email explaining that he was now seeing someone seriously. That someone was Kendra Hatcher. Ricky likely thought his ex-girlfriend deserved to hear the news from him rather than discovering it through the grapevine. He did not realize he was triggering something far darker. Brenda Delgado appeared to be a normal woman. Her family knew her as kind and caring, someone who held Christian values and came from a loving home. She worked steadily and seemed to be living a balanced life. What no one saw was what festered beneath the surface. When she received Ricky's email, something inside her broke. She convinced herself that Kendra was an imposter, someone who had stolen the man Brenda believed still belonged to her. Within weeks, her obsession evolved into something genuinely frightening. She began following Ricky without his knowledge. She hacked into his email account and read his private messages. She watched him move through his daily life like a predator tracking prey. She was aware he still had a key to his house and access to his bank accounts. The more she watched, the more she convinced herself that eliminating Kendra was the only path back to Ricky's heart. Brenda's first attempt was to find someone willing to attack Kendra with a baseball bat. She approached her cousin Moses Martinez with the request. He refused immediately. She then asked her friend Jennifer Escobar. Again, she was rejected. Brenda even offered money and drugs as incentive. Still, no one would take the bait. But Brenda did not stop. She deepened her partnership with a woman named Crystal Cortez, a 26-year-old single mother who struggled to provide for her child. Brenda represented everything Crystal lacked: financial stability, independence, and opportunity. When Brenda suggested that they could solve her problems by eliminating Kendra, Crystal's resistance crumbled. Together, the two women began something almost unimaginable. They drove through rough neighborhoods, approaching strangers, asking them if they would murder Kendra Hatcher for cash and drugs. Most people refused. Some were horrified. But eventually they encountered Christopher Love, a 31-year-old man with nothing to lose. He was willing to discuss methods. They settled on a gun. Brenda promised him money, drugs, and connections to gang members. For weeks, the three of them surveilled Kendra. Brenda used the email she had hacked to learn that Kendra and Ricky were planning a trip to Mexico for Labor Day weekend, followed by a move to San Francisco. Brenda decided the murder had to happen immediately. Christopher waited across the street from Smile Zone, sitting in a Salvation Army thrift store with binoculars. Brenda and Crystal followed Kendra home from work, discovering that the secure parking garage could be accessed by simply tailgating a resident through the gate. The security that Kendra had relied on meant nothing against the coordination of three people determined to end her life. On September 2, 2015, after finishing her shift, Kendra drove into the garage of Gables Park 17 at 7:42 in the evening. She was excited about the weekend ahead. She was thinking about Mexico. She was thinking about San Francisco. She was thinking about her future with the man she loved. Within minutes, the sound of screaming echoed through the concrete space. Then came gunfire. A resident named Hashimat heard the shots and immediately called 911. By the time police arrived, Kendra Hatcher was dead. She had been shot multiple times, executed with her hands behind her head, forced to her knees before the gun went off. Investigators initially suspected a robbery gone wrong. Kendra's purse was missing. Ammunition was scattered near her body. But as detectives examined the scene more carefully, the truth revealed itself. Gunshot residue on her hands indicated they had been positioned behind her head when she was shot. The trajectory of the bullets proved she was on her knees when it happened. The scene was staged. This was not a robbery. This was a murder, and it had been meticulously planned. Police reviewed the security footage from Kendra's building and discovered a Jeep Cherokee that did not belong. It arrived at 7:15, 28 minutes before Kendra came home. A man was seen walking toward her assigned parking space, then returning to the vehicle. Moments after the gunshots, a woman was recorded driving the Jeep away at high speed. The footage was too grainy to identify the suspects or capture the license plate. Investigators released still images to the public, asking for help, and then something unexpected happened. A man named Joseé Chinese letter Luis Ortiz came forward and admitted the Jeep belonged to him. He explained that two women had asked to borrow it on the morning of September 2nd. One of those women was named Brenda Delgado. The other was Crystal Cortez. Ortiz had agreed to lend them the vehicle without suspicion. When he learned his car had been used in a murder, he was horrified. Brenda had even approached him after seeing the surveillance footage and insisted the Jeep in the images was not his. She lied. Later, she changed her story and claimed Crystal had driven to Kendra's building to collect illegal goods for a friend. Brenda even urged Ortiz to repaint the vehicle and threatened that if he was implicated, he could lose his U.S. citizenship. Her deception sealed her fate. Investigators quickly located and questioned Brenda. She denied knowing anything about Kendra. She claimed she had dinner with Ortiz at Chili's at the time of the murder and produced receipts to prove it. She said she had let Crystal use the Jeep for the day and had nothing to do with what happened next. The lie held no weight once investigators spoke with Crystal. Crystal's story unraveled quickly. At first, she claimed she had been forced to drive an armed man to the building under duress while her young son sat in the car. When investigators pointed out that surveillance footage showed no child in the vehicle, she abandoned that lie. She then admitted she had driven Christopher Love to the garage so he could commit a robbery, claiming Brenda had directed the operation because Ricky was seeing someone new. But as her interrogation continued, something more damning emerged. Crystal revealed that only 2 weeks after meeting Brenda, she had confessed that she wanted Kendra gone from Ricky's life, and that she was willing to murder her to make it happen. Crystal made a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for her testimony, she would receive 35 years instead of life. She told investigators everything. She explained how Brenda had monitored Ricky obsessively, hacking his email and learning about the Mexico trip and the planned move to San Francisco. She described the surveillance of Smile Zone, the rehearsal on September 1st, the tailgating through the secure gate, and Christopher Love waiting in position. She described watching from the Jeep as Christopher executed Kendra in the garage, and she described their escape, dropping Christopher off at his residence and returning the vehicle to Joseé Chinese letter Ortiz. Christopher Love was arrested when the murder weapon was found in his possession. He confessed and immediately blamed Brenda as the mastermind. His confession was almost unnecessary. Investigators already knew the truth from Crystal. Christopher was sentenced to death for pulling the trigger. But Brenda, the woman who orchestrated the entire scheme, the woman whose obsession and jealousy had consumed a human life, was no longer in Dallas. Brenda Delgado fled rather than face conviction. She became a fugitive, evading law enforcement for 7 months. Eventually, she was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. A $100,000 reward was offered for information leading to her capture. She was finally located in Mexico and arrested in April 2016. She was extradited back to the United States under the condition that she would not face the death penalty. At trial, Brenda pleaded not guilty and presented an alternate version of events, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her hacking of Ricky's email, her obsessive surveillance, her failed attempts to recruit others into the plan, her partnership with Crystal, her payment to Crystal captured on ATM receipts. The jurors saw through every lie she told. They understood that Brenda Delgado had orchestrated the murder of Kendra Hatcher because she could not accept that Ricky had moved on. They found her guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Today, Kendra's family continues to grieve. Her colleagues at Smile Zone struggle to find joy in their work. Tammy Patino, who had known Kendra since school and remained close as an adult, says she no longer feels carefree. She no longer feels as outgoing as she once was. The crime touched everyone who knew Kendra, and it reached even further. Her young patients, children from disadvantaged backgrounds who had trusted her and loved her, were left trying to understand why 3 strangers who never even spoke to their dentist would take her life. The ripples of Kendra's murder continue to spread through the lives of everyone she touched. Brenda Delgado will spend the rest of her life behind bars. She will never see freedom again. But freedom is not what was stolen from Kendra Hatcher. What was stolen was a life of unlimited potential, a life dedicated to healing and service, a life that was changing the world one patient at a time. All of that was erased because one woman could not let go. The cases we cover here at U.S. Crime Files remind us that the people we love are fragile. The world is not always safe, and the people closest to us can sometimes harbor the darkest intentions. Kendra Hatcher's story is a tragedy that should never have happened, but it did. And the only thing we can do now is remember her for who she was, a remarkable young woman who gave everything she had to make the world brighter. If you found this case compelling, please like this video and subscribe to U.S. Crime Files. We explore true crime cases every single night, diving deep into the facts, the investigation, and the lives forever changed by violence. Thank you for watching, and remember,